Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Bring Back the Brass. My name is Paul Fisher, and I am really thrilled to introduce you to one of my great friends, a fantastic world-renowned trumpeter, and someone who's a big fan of the brass band world. So please say hello to Mr. Mike Lovatt. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Paul. Great to see you, and hopefully lovely to know that there's lots of people watching this interview. It's lovely to be
Yeah,
here.
I'm sure there will be. How are you? You well?
Yes, I'm not too bad. Actually, I've just come back from rehearsing. I'm doing a gig. I'm actually doing a gig
Woohoo!
in my local church. I live in Hertfordshire in a little village called Potnend, and we're doing it's a postponed Valentine's night concert. So we've entitled it "Each Day is Valentine's Day," which of course is from the song itself. And my wife and I, my wife's a violinist, Anne, and we're playing some things on the violin herself on her own, but we're doing a load of duets, which we've sort of concocted ourselves from our various lockdown projects.
Fantastic, very good. And so, what I wanted to sort of say to you tonight and get us going on this conversation really is I'm one of the lucky people that's got to sit in front of you over the years and hear your incredible sound at the back of my head and been
Oh, thanks.
inspired and infused by the amazing noise that you make out of your trumpet. And I wanted to start this by telling everyone that actually that you didn't begin in brass band movement like so many of us brass players did, but of course you've been influenced hugely by tremendous players around you, before you, next to you in your playing career. So tell us a little bit about how you think the brass band movement has influenced you as a musician and a trumpeter.
Yeah, well, I think the brass band movement has influenced the sound of brass playing throughout the UK for a long, long time. And I suddenly stopped and realised that all my favourite players from when I was growing up as a kid all came through brass bands. So
Yeah,
you can go back a decade, you can go back further than that, and to people like, say, Kenny Baker,
yeah,
Stan Roderick, all the lead trumpet players of yesteryear, Derek Healy, all these guys that some of the viewers might know these names, but they're all amazing trumpeters who all started life in a brass band. So even though I didn't play in a brass band, I didn't grow up with a brass band around me or a cornet or anything like that, I was straight onto the trumpet. But all these people I was listening to from
yeah,
age 6 or 7 were all from a brass band. And they carried that with them, and they've carried it with them right through. So that line has gone right through, I think, trumpet playing in the UK. And if we come a bit more up to date, you look at somebody like Derek Watkins. Derek
yeah,
Watkins, known as one of the greatest lead trumpet players there's ever been, known as a high note trumpet player. But if you listen to the way that he played a tune,
yeah,
you'd be well aware that his dad conducted the Reading band. I can't remember the name of the band, Spring Bridge or something
yeah,
like that. Yeah,
yeah.
Springfields
Reading.
or
I want to Google it and have a look now. Spring Gardens Brass Band. I'm
yeah,
going to look.
it's
Yeah,
something
it's
like
something like
that.
that. Yeah, and they're
Yeah,
still going now, and they've got a really huge membership,
yeah.
which is fantastic. Yeah, I've seen them in the last couple of years actually.
Yeah,
So
and
that's fantastic.
so Derek would play a melody. You can hear that that sound of that brass band kind of
Yeah,
sound. He always played. People didn't realise this. Like in the 1970s, Derek always had that bit of shimmer on his
yeah,
sound, which had that from that brass band thing, and and then of course if you go on to the other side of the business, so onto the classical side, my big hero growing up was, of course, he's everybody's hero,
yeah,
Maurice Murphy. Not only the greatest, in my view, the greatest first trumpet in the world, and I'll stand by that. I think he definitely was. Maurice he had that sound, he had that thing, the thing which we really can't put the finger on. Like he could touch you,
yeah,
and I'll never forget. I turned up to do a session whenever it was. It was a long time ago. It was the first time I'd ever worked with Maurice Murphy, and it was at Angel Studios. And I even remember what the session was because it's really stuck in my mind. And it
it was
was
a big session, wasn't
it was
it?
it was for Jingle, which is for for an advertisement, a TV advertisement, and it was for Bird's Eye Fish Fingers. So anybody that remembers Captain Birdseye, maybe they still have him, I don't know.
Yeah, they do.
That's all it was, and it was John Altman conducting, and he'd done the chart as well. But in walked Morris, and he's good morning, gentlemen. he was always like, he always had really nice brogues on, Morris, you know, really beautifully turned out. And he just literally opened his trumpet case, put the mouthpiece in, and he just played a middle G. And I just went like this. It was
Yeah.
like he'd given me a hug. It was just unbelievable. And that sound he carried, of course, onto everything that he did. And that came from the brass bands.
Yeah.
Now, I hope that somewhere along the line, all these people that played in brass bands and then, you know, worked in the commercial environment and worked in symphony orchestras and blah, 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 blah. I hope that that in some way has sort of seeped into my playing.
Well, it
And
has.
and of course, in the last few years, you know, I was lucky enough to, because of you and your, you know, we were already great friends, like you say, working together and doing stuff together, and your love of brass bands and inviting me along to do a concert with your band, with Amersham
Yeah.
Band, and
Yep.
of course not just Amersham Band but also Foden's band, and that's where we sort of came up with this idea of you came up with the idea, you already come up with the
Yeah.
idea, let's do an album. So that's how that happened. And I must admit that when I went to Foden's band room back in, when it was 2018,
Yeah.
in the summer, and I heard them playing these amazing charts that Colin Skinner had arranged for brass band and me, and with a jazz rhythm section added to a brass band, it was a real moment that I will never forget. That sound
Yeah.
of that band playing. I mean, you were there as well. We were like, I think we both had tears rolling down our
Yeah. It
faces.
was amazing. Because when they were trying to replicate a string section, you had
Yeah,
a Kenny Baker album that you knew from being a kid, and this amazing string section, and how are we going to replicate that, Fish? And it was like, well, the cornet section are going to do it, and of course we had Richard Poole on soprano cornet that was just all over it,
he's amazing. Yeah,
you know,
incredible.
and it was that moment of wow, what an incredible ensemble this is,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
which
And
of
then I
course we
think
knew anyway.
there was also in one of the medleys, there's Old Man River, you know, the Jerome Kern tune from Showboat, and I think it was Gary Curtin or somebody playing the melody, you know, and it was just like I'm tingling now just
Yeah,
thinking, remembering that sound. So
yeah.
yeah, thanks to you for, you know, making me close to brass bands. And I'm so close to brass bands now that I'm actually the vice president of Amersham Band, which I'm
You
very
are.
proud. I'm very proud to be, and I'm very proud to be associated with the brass band movement.
It's true. I actually sat next to you at the 2019 national finals, didn't I? We went to watch,
You did.
and I could. You were like a kid at school with, you know, packing sweets. You were so excited to hear all these
I
amazing
was.
musicians.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
they
So
they, they
which
knock me out. They really do.
yeah, we've talked about sound, okay? So and the brass band sound, and that's the word that I think is connected to you hugely as a trumpeter, and you've got such an incredible sound. And it's big and it fills that Albert Hall, and I know we're going to check out a little video quite soon, but before we go to that, can you talk to us a little bit about what's behind that sound, Mike? Because it doesn't just happen. So what is your thinking when, for all the trumpet players, brass players that are going to be listening to this, what's behind that sound and how do you work on it and how do you maintain it?
Okay, my sound concept really, and I don't want to sound corny. I've always loved singers and singing, and when
Yeah,
I was young, my dad, who was a music teacher, he always encouraged me to sing
yeah,
and to listen to singing and to sing in the church choir and all these things that would hopefully, his idea was that it was going to improve my musicianship. I didn't have a fantastic singing voice, but it was about the melody, it was about the line, it was about the sound.
yeah.
And so it was always, that was what was kind of put right into me and in you know, inbred almost, that that's what you have to do to be a musician. So when I played the trumpet, I was always, the thing that drew me to the trumpet actually was a melodic, as a melodic instrument. It wasn't about high notes, it wasn't about amazing fast technique or anything like that. It was just about playing a melody. And so I used to play along to records in my bedroom at home, and a lot of those times I would choose things that were tunes, you know,
Yeah.
whether it was a big band thing or you know, or a more classical thing, or a brass ensemble thing. I used to play along with the Philip Jones brass ensemble, and I'd try and play a melody. And as time has gone on, I've really tried to analyse really what it is that I'm sort of subconsciously doing. I try not to think about it too much when I'm playing. I'm
Yeah.
trying to just sing that sound in my head, because
Yeah.
every instrument we're trying to get as close to the human voice as possible. That's what it's about. But I try and think like in a head voice for like resonance. Resonance is something that I always try and do. I try and make sure that the airstream is at the pitch of the notes. You know, if we use the oral cavity and we go, you know, we can, all the notes are there within our. Somebody might call it whistling, but that's through the lips. That's in the oral cavity.
Yeah.
So the air speed and the air pitch, if you like, with the resonance that's going on within the mouth, which of course is in the head, if you add that to the playing, then you get twice the note for half the money.
Yeah.
And so that's the concept that I'm always trying to do. And the very first time in the morning when I pick up my trumpet, I go to middle G, I play middle G, I try and sound like that middle G that Morris played on that session. But I play that and I try and, it's like I get my little polishing cloth out and I'll polish all around it till it shines.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
And it's that at every dynamic. It's people think when they play quietly, the sound has to diminish, but the sound doesn't have to diminish. All those harmonics still need to be there in the sound.
Yeah.
It's just keeping the intensity.
Yeah.
Intensity
and the beauty.
The
it's that beautiful thing. Yeah.
Never give up on a note. You have a long note, a lot of people just give up on it because it's a semi-brief. Oh, I'll just play it like that. No, don't do that. Keep it live. Keep it live. Keep. You know.
So we're going to watch this video of you. This is from one of your proms with the John Wilson Orchestra. We'll just talk quickly about that. So obviously, people who are watching tonight will have seen you more than anything at the BBC proms with John. You're the trumpet player that more often than not stands up and gives us the smoochy solo. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about those experiences and the joy of those gigs.
Well, back in 2009, I remember that. It was 2008 when we sort of told that the John Wilson had got a prom, and we all got very excited about it. And it got to the rehearsals, and they'd arranged that the prom, in order to get all this music in, was going to be live on the television. But aside from that, there was going to be no interval. It was going to be straight through 2 hours, and I think we were on stage for 2 hours and 25 minutes without getting off. So you had to make sure you went to the loo before you went on stage, and that night was just electrifying. We sort of, it wasn't like a complacency, but we knew that the world would be amazed by this orchestra because we'd been playing together for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years before that prom, maybe more with some of the string players. But it was just like letting it unleash. And as soon as John saw on his stand, there was a little green light. The green light went on. There's a bit of a pregnant pause. And then the overture started off, dun, 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 dun. And it was like John had set light to the end of a piece of touch paper, and it just went off, whoosh. And there's nothing anybody could do to stop it. And I'll never forget at the end of that overture, which was made up of famous tunes from the MGM studios. It was just like, I don't know, the Albert Hall just went ballistic. And I'm not kidding you that the next day after that concert went out live on the television, I've never had so many texts, emails, phone calls, people who hadn't really heard me play the trumpet before. So I'm very grateful for being part of that orchestra and it's sort of helping to sort of get me out there as a player. Yeah.
So let's have a little listen to one of the many, many solos that you've done on one of those gigs. Here's Mike playing a very sexy solo at the proms with John Wilson Orchestra. Hope you enjoyed that, everybody. There you are, the one and only Mike Lovatt. So, Mike, I want to talk about your latest project, really. I know there's something that we've both, well, I'm not involved in this project, but you've shown it me and I've listened to it and it's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your Carmen Billy May project.
Yes. Okay. Well, quite a few years back, I was made the Derek Watkins Chair of Trumpeter at the Royal Academy of Music,
Yeah.
and the idea behind being given that appointment was actually, for me, was to use my strengths in different areas of music to try and bring those different schools
Yeah.
together. So from the classical players and the jazz players, and put them all together in one ensemble. So I sort of started to think, what can I do that with brass players and maybe get some jazz players in? What can I do? And I thought, big fat brass. And I knew that quite a while back, John Wilson had asked Andrew Cotty, amazing orchestrator, transcriber, and composer, to transcribe the original Billy May Big Fat Brass numbers.
So let's just stop there because I think that lots of people won't know what we're talking about. So we need to explain what Billy May Big Fat Brass is. So go from that point and then we'll carry on.
Okay, yeah. So, Billy May's Big Fat Brass was an album which was made in 1958. Billy May, one of the top LA arrangers and composers. I taught a puddy cat. He wrote that, and a lot of other things which people will have heard. He did arrangements for Nat King Cole, for Ella Fitzgerald, for Frank Sinatra. He was the top guy. Everybody went to him. Ex-trumpeter from the Glenn Miller Orchestra as well.
Wow.
And he put this album together for Capitol Records. I think it was probably a filler. We got a session. Let's put this together.
Yeah.
And so he wrote these amazing charts. Some of them are standards, some of them are originals. And he got all the top sidemen from Hollywood. So Conrad Gozzo, Manny Klein, Cy Zentner, all the top sidemen. And he added French horns instead of saxes. So hence Big Fat Brass. He had a harp in there. He had tune percussion, the typical Billy May stuff.
Tuba,
yeah, 2 tubas. And so Andrew Cotty took down this stuff for John Wilson, and I remembered this. And I thought, that'd be perfect. We could get all these brass players together. That'd be perfect. So that's what I did, and I put a concert on. And then I went to various colleges and conservatoires and did a similar kind of concert. But also, in the back of my mind was me thinking, what I'd really like to do one day is do this with a professional group of players. And at that point, Colin Skinner, I've already mentioned, fantastic arranger, and did all the composing and arranging for the album that we did together. And he said, I'll do some arrangements for the same lineup. Yeah. So Colin started, and we got the Royal College of Music to commission some new arrangements, and I commissioned some as well. And Colin said, I've had an idea about doing the Carmen suite for brass, in this style. But I'll do a bit like Duke Ellington, I'll do a bit like Billy May, I'll do a bit like Glenn Miller, and I'll do all this. Really, Colin? Yeah. So Colin came up with this amazing 10-minute suite of all the big tunes from Carmen. And we did it for the first time at the Royal College.
I was there. I was lucky enough to be one of the people there.
And it was, and as you know, it's an incredible piece of music. Yeah. I mean, the music itself, but Colin's arranging is just unbelievable. And so my, lockdown project has been thinking about how I could maybe record this virtually with people everywhere.
Yeah.
So I farmed out. I first got a click track together, and I gave the click track to a bass player. And the poor old bass player just had to go boom, 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 just with a click going, nothing else. And of course, it changes tempo. There's rowels. Yeah. There's accels. There's everything in it. And then I put down 6 trumpet parts to it, and then one by one, I sent that to trumpet players that have recorded on there. Tom Walsh and people like that are on there. Great players, friends of mine, and everybody's done it at home. They've done a video, so we're gonna put this thing together. We're almost at the end of it now. It's almost there. I'm waiting for one French horn, and that's going to be Sarah Willis, who some of the people might know. She's from the Berlin Phil. She's in Cuba at the moment. She's going to do a video in Cuba, so that's very exciting. Chris Parks is playing first horn on there.
Okay.
A lot of people will know Chris.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
brass band tradition there with him.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this group really is going to be born, and we've decided to call it Mike Lovatt's Brass Pack,
Right.
and we will be available for functions and bar mitzvahs and gigs and what have you, and we'll use this as kind of a demo for it. But it's going to be out. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on all the social media sites, and I think maybe Ewan Fox at Four Bars Rest is going to put it out there for me as well.
Okay, great.
And so hopefully, if you look, keep an eye out for it, you'll see it and you'll hear it. And um, I'm very pleased with how it's shaping up. It's got to be mixed yet, but
Yeah,
some
cool.
amazing stuff going on there.
Great. And I'm sure there's going to be more brass band projects with you in the future for sure. Well, I know there's going to be,
I
because I won't
certainly
let
hope
you.
so.
Yeah, I won't let you off with it. There's definitely more in the tank. So we'll be definitely doing that. I want to ask one thing. I hope you don't mind me asking this, but I know that it's something that brass band people are always curious about.
Yeah.
And it's your high register. And I know you're probably sick to death of people asking you about it. But if you could just give us 2 minutes advice on what it is that helps people in the future improve their high register, what would it be?
Okay. So just to give a little tiny bit of a background, when I was 13, 14, I could play up to a high G. So that's, a
Okay.
G above normal top C.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think anything of that. I just thought that was normal and that's what trumpet players did. But then I was also a very keen cyclist, and when I was 14, I was on a country lane and a car basically drove into me, lacerated my top lip. It was hanging off my face. I lost a bit of lip. I lost teeth in the bottom. That was going to be the end of trumpet playing for
Yeah.
me, or brass playing. But I luckily got some teeth put back in a bridge by a local dentist who happened to be an amateur French horn player. So he knew a bit about brass playing.
Yeah.
Those teeth are still in my mouth now. And I started to work on the sound first of all, but the
Yeah.
range never came back.
Okay.
Never came back. So my ceiling then was an ordinary top C, really.
Yeah.
I auditioned for music conservatoires. I went to Trinity, and there, in those days, not a lot really was talked about with embouchures, and unless you had a really terrible, there was a few teachers who would say, "Oh yeah, you need to do this with the embouchure or that with the embouchure." I think nowadays, fast forward to 2021,
Yeah.
you've got a lot more people a lot more influence from America with people like Bobby Shue and that
Yeah.
kind of the pedagogues on embouchures. But I was very lucky, and after I left college, I became a member of the Glenn Miller UK band, and it was in that band there was a trombone player called Andy Hutchinson, and some people might know Andy.
Yeah.
He used to work closely with Mick Rath on the
Yeah.
trombones, and Andy was a fantastic trombone player himself. And Andy said, "Oh, I've got this book, and it's something that I've been working on, and I know you've been trying to get your chops going again, and it might work for you." So he gave me a copy, and that book was the Louis Maggio system. I did it. I now know that I did it sort of wrong. I didn't do what there was a load of notes that I didn't have, but like at the beginning of the book. So I just made it up for myself really from the notes,
Yeah.
from the musical notes. And I did this thing, and after about a month of doing it, all of a sudden, I remember I used to sit on the edge of my bed, and there was a mirror on the wall. And I used to sit in front of it just to check my chops.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was just like, wow! I just played a top F, and it was really easy. And the sound was getting bigger as well. And so from that, I've learned really that the way to do it is about the air.
Yeah.
And various people think things about air. It's not about quantity of air. It's about the speed of the air and how we compress the air. So that thing I was doing earlier about singing through with the tongue, well, that's a very simple way. That's just the air here within the oral cavity. But also we've got compression from here. We've got compression from here. We've got compression from here. We've got compression from there, and we've got compression from our abs. All these places and our back, and all these things have to lock together to get that high speed of air. Not a lot of you can play a super C without taking a breath in.
Yeah.
You can't play a bottom C without taking a breath in.
No.
So it's almost like, if you go to a swimming pool and and well, when you're a kid maybe, and you put some water in your mouth, and you go, and you squirt it out just from your mouth.
Yeah.
Imagine that with, with the
Yeah.
mouthpiece, with the air.
Yeah.
And just try doing that on your instrument, and you'll notice that, okay, it might not be a big note, but you'll get a squeaky note coming out. It'll be a high note. I guarantee you, it'll be high. And you're not blowing hard. So that will actually give you the thing to go, actually, yeah, you can play high without... It's not forced like that.
Yeah.
I know you see all these people like, Maynard Ferguson, who was amazing at playing high notes, of course.
Yeah.
But it was all that bravura as well. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You can just do it. You can just do it like that. I mean, I don't class myself as a specialist high note trumpet player, but over the years I've had to use it. But I can count on one hand how many times it's actually been there in front of me on a recording session to play a Super C.
Of course, I know.
It's like having a car that can do 250 mile an hour and you drive it at 60.
Yeah.
So if you've got that range, if you can play a Super C and maybe, now and again you can play a Super C, then you know that a top G is going to be the ceiling of your range, really.
Good.
So if you can play higher than a Super C, then you'll get a Super C every day.
I think that's good advice. To all the brass banders, they'll love it. The next test piece that comes out, if there's ever a test piece with a Super C, then they can come to you, can't they? That's fine. But thank you so much for spending the time to chat to us. Our time is up. It goes so fast. And I know, obviously, me and you could talk for hours, and we probably will sometime soon. Now that the pubs are open, we'll be able to meet up.
I hope so.
I hope your gig goes well tonight.
Thank you.
I'm sure it'll be great, and I'm sure that all of our listeners can't wait to hear your Carmen project coming very soon, and to catch you live in concert before too long, which I'm sure we'll be able to do the two, won't we?
Yes,
there'll be gigs again, which will be very exciting.
Looking forward to coming down to the Amersham band room as well, the new band room.
Yeah, you'll be allowed to come in. You're not allowed to come in just yet because we've got too many members and we're only allowed so many in our space. But as soon as you're allowed, I promise you, Vice President, you'll be allowed. That's it. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks to all of you guys for listening, and see you all soon. Thank you. Cheers, Mike.
Thanks.
Bye,
Thanks,
mate.
Paul. Bye.
Bye.